Hello everyone! I've been working on a redstone project for a while and I think it's pretty cool, so I wanted to post a video explaining what it is and how it works. So first off, I have a disclaimer. I didn't come up with many of the redstone circuits in the component parts of it, and so I'll put a few links to some of the videos I found most helpful in the description, but I didn't hunt down every single source for every circuit I made, so I probably missed some. Okay, this project is an automated Minecraft store. I decided to call it the Bundle Bonanza. The idea is to have bundles for sale, like a redstone bundle, or an equipment bundle, or maybe like a wood bundle, things like that. And then to have payment automatically collected so that the shopper, which I'm going to refer to as a user from here on, doesn't have to think too much. And basically, I wanted to make the store as easy to use as possible and make it very difficult to use wrong. So here it is. This is definitely the largest redstone project I've ever worked on. So let's jump right in and show how a user would interact with this. So first, they would look through this book. On each page here, there would be a description of each bundle. So it'd say like, this is a redstone bundle, it has comparators, it has repeaters, pistons, etc. And also the price in diamond blocks, so they know what they're going to pay. They select that page and then they hit a button and it'll go ahead and start the system processing. Then they insert their payment into this payment chest and it'll start being taken automatically. And then once the payment has been accepted, then a minecart will be released and it'll be routed around to the user here where they can collect their bundle, and then the minecart is returned to the system. So if the user pays too much, that's fine, because all their payment is still in the payment chest. It only takes the amount of payment that it needs. Now if they underpay, the cost of this bundle was 5 diamond blocks, so if you don't pay enough, then the system will be able to detect that and it will return the items to the user through this bubble elevator here. If you are selling something at this Bundle Bonanza, then what you do is you first go and claim a slot. So say I'm claiming slot 2. What I want to do is I want to make my bundles in these bundle minecarts and then load them into the system. And then I go over here where there's a stocking button to say, and what this does is it will load that first minecart into the system. Next I'll come down and there are stock counters here. This is more for convenience later to see how many bundles you've sold. So what I'll do is I made 2 bundles, so I'll put 2 bundles in here. And then I will go down another layer and I need to set the price of my bundle. So if I go down here to slot 2, I can set the price. I want it to be 5 diamonds. Doesn't really matter what item is in there, it just counts what item it is. If a user then comes and selects a bundle, then what a seller will see is that a item from the stock count has moved down into their sold count, so they know how many bundles they have sold. Once the seller knows how many bundles they have sold, then what they can do is they can come down here. There is a chest that collects all of the payment, and they can remove the amount of diamond blocks that are for their bundle sales. When they need to restock a bundle, all they need to do is go down here and all of the minecarts and chests are automatically collected and they can then use those to restock. So that's how that all is supposed to work. So I thought what I would do is I'd break it out into sections and show how each of the different components works separately. Before I get started here, a quick note, wherever there is polished andesite, that represents an input from a different circuit in the system. So this one here, this orange circuit, is actually taking these torches as an input. So that is what the andesite with the levers on it represents. Okay, so the whole thing starts here. This red circuit is a red coder. It's a red coder that will work with the 1.16 update. Basically what a red coder is one torch will always be lit based on the lectern page that is selected. And how that works is that this block is powered, which will power these repeaters and turn off this torch, which usually would mean that this torch could be lit. But if a power level is high enough that it reaches onto the second level, then this block will be powered by that repeater and it'll actually turn off the torch. So what happens is there's a power level of 2 here, which means that there's a power level of 1 here turning off that torch, but there's a power level of 1 here, meaning that underneath this torch is unpowered, but the power level hasn't reached this block yet, so this torch can remain lit. And that works all the way down the line like that. This next circuit here is a simple AND gate, so its inputs are whichever torch happens to be lit over here on the red coder, and also this button press. So when this button is pressed, all of these pistons go down, and the piston that also has a input from the red coder will transfer power through these repeaters, through the block, and unpower the torch on the other side there. Now, there's also a piston here on top of these pistons that extend. That's going to be used in a later circuit to show when something goes out of stock. Basically, that piston will be retracted, and then when the button is pressed, that block will no longer participate in the AND gate, so there's no way that that torch can become unpowered. This yellow circuit here is a minecart release station, so it will release the payment minecarts into the system, and so these pistons will always be extended because these torches are always powered unless that AND gate gets the input from the button and the red coder, and if that happens, then a piston will be retracted, which will send a minecart off and into the system. Now, these rails here are directional. I built the entire contraption facing east in this direction. That's because minecarts are directional where they will go. So if I send it this way, it'll go that way, but if I sent it, it would still go towards the east. It also does that in the north-south directions. I think it always will go to the south. Another thing that's going on with this circuit is that each of these minecarts is sitting on a detector rail. That will tell these torches to light or unlight, respectively, which will give us a signal to tell us when a minecart is missing from its station. I also decided to power all of the rails, these powered rails here, that the minecarts are going to be launched onto. I did this because the minecarts sometimes got stuck and wouldn't get onto this next track, so I needed to power those so that they would always exit their station correctly. This green circuit actually serves two important functions. One function is that when a minecart leaves its station, then its torch will be carried up this line of repeaters and torches up to here, pushing out a piston, so that when a minecart comes back, it will be replaced back into its same slot that it was in initially. When the minecart returns to that station, then this will no longer be powered, and these observers will act as a double piston extender, which pushes all the rails back into place so that they are reset for the next user to summon another payment minecart. The second function of this circuit is that when any of the payment minecarts have left the station, this line of redstone will be lit, which will light this line of redstone, and that powered line of redstone will keep all of the minecart release pistons powered, which means that the user can't summon two carts at the same time. The previous one has to first return so that this line of redstone gets unpowered and then the pistons will function again. This redstone line that powers the payment minecart release pistons is used quite a bit later to ensure that the user can't summon a bundle when the system is still processing. This light blue circuit is the track that the payment minecarts will go on. So if you have a payment minecart here and it has a payment in it, and then you send it on its way, what it'll do is it'll be trapped by that first gate there until there is payment in this payment chest. Now, if there already was payment in this payment chest, then this pulse extender here, triggered by that detector rail, will make sure that this still catches the minecart here, which I needed to do because there were some momentum issues with the minecart getting past the second gate here if I didn't close this gate first. So if the minecart had payment in it, then it would be pulled into the hopper underneath it. When that happens, this comparator lights up, which will unpower this and so close that gate. It'll also light up this torch, which is used in a later circuit. The hopper underneath the first hopper is unpowered and controlled by the next circuit over, and when it starts emptying items, then what that'll do is release the cart, which will jump down onto this rail here. Since this hopper had items in it, then it actually closed this gate until the hopper minecart could pick the items up, releasing it, and then send it on its way to meet up with the green circuit over there. This Cyan circuit is the one that collects the required amount of payment from the user. So this is the payment chest that the user puts their diamonds into, and here I'm just showing that you can put whatever you want into there, that it'll only pull the diamond blocks because there's an item filter here that will filter out the diamonds into an eventual payment collection chest. So when a minecart, a payment minecart, comes through the system and is emptying into that first hopper in the light blue circuit, what happens is that this hopper clock, which just has an item in it, will start being triggered, and that will pulse this redstone line, which will unpower this hopper just long enough to transfer one item from that first hopper down. It'll also pulse that same amount to unblock this filtered hopper to pull those items from the payment chest. There's one additional output to this circuit. There is a torch here on the item filter, and when things are passing through the item filter, that lights up this line and then will turn off this torch so it'll be flashing. That'll be used in the next circuit. This blue circuit is the payment verification circuit. It determines if a user has paid enough for a bundle or if they didn't pay enough and their payment needs to be returned to them. So how it works is that when a cart arrives, then this torch will be lit, and that will do many things. One of them is that when the minecart actually leaves and there is payment in the payment chest, then these pistons will be powered, which will move these redstone blocks and unpower these hoppers here. That will allow the items from the filtered payment chest to go either into accepted payment or to go through this hopper line into a dropper circuit, which goes into this bubble elevator, and have the items returned to the user. So the way that it is determined to go to either the user or down into the accepted payment chest down below is with these two droppers and the comparators. There's only one item in here, and whichever dropper has the item, its comparator will be powered, which means that that'll lock the hopper that is in front of it. So if this comparator is powered, it means that all of the items from this chest will actually flow into the circuit to be returned to the user. And if the item is in this side, then this one will be powered, and this will lock this hopper, and the items will flow down and into the accepted payment chest. So how those droppers are triggered, this one here, which is actually the payment accepted dropper, is triggered when the minecart first arrives. The signal, this torch will be lit, and that'll send a signal down here and unpower that torch. Then there is a falling edge monostable circuit here that will send a pulse out this line, which connects up and will power that dropper and push the item into this one. That will unlock this hopper so that when these pistons unlock the hoppers, both of them, then it'll go into the payment accepted bin. And the other dropper is triggered by that item filter that had that flashing torch on it from that cyan circuit over there. So that flashing torch goes into this pulse extender here that turns the flashing into a solid signal, and if that flashing stops, then this line will become unpowered. It's powered right now because of this one, but it'll become unpowered, and that will light up this torch here and send a signal all the way around and power that dropper to push the item back into this first dropper. That means that it'll be powered and all the items will be returned to the user. That happens when there are not enough items passing through the item filter to keep this powered for as long as the minecart is present. Because if the minecart is present, then this torch will be off. So if this signal turns off before this signal turns back on, meaning that the filter ran out of items to filter before the minecart left, then that is when the dropper will be triggered. And the way that that works is really by the delay on these repeaters here, 4 ticks, 4 ticks, and 3 ticks. I found that through experimentation, that if the timing on the circuit delay is too long, then the items will be returned to the user even if they paid the right amount. And if it's too short, then it'll accept payment even if it was too low and it wasn't a valid amount for the bundle. So there was a lot of experimentation there, and the other side effect of this delay circuit is that this item filter and dropper circuit only triggers when the minecart leaves, because the delay for that torch, this torch, to become unpowered is long enough that the items have started filtering. I'm going to try and demonstrate how this works. So first, a minecart will arrive, and then the item filter will start pulsing. I'm only going to trigger it once, but pretend it's pulsing. And what that has done now is that the item has been pushed into this one, and so now the payment will have been accepted. So say there's actually payment in here, then note how this torch got unpowered. That's because there was now contents in this filtered payment chest. So if there was not enough items, then the filter will have turned off first. So if we do that, then what we see is that that was pulsed, making the item move back over into this dispenser here, meaning that when these are unpowered, when the minecart leaves, when these pistons are powered rather, and when the minecart leaves, then these hoppers being unlocked will only unlock this one and it'll be returned to the user. So let's show that by having the minecart leave. What we should see is we should see items coming back to the user. So the next case is where we have the minecart arrive, the filter starts, see that the item has been pushed over again, and if we have stuff in the chest, and then this time the minecart leaves before the filter is done. Actually, they'll finish at the same time, but before the filter is done, then what happens is that those will be powered and the items will have passed down and into this bottom payment collection chest, and they're no longer shooting out of this item elevator here. This purple circuit is one that detects when a successful payment has occurred. So what happens is when a successful payment is happening, then the items from that blue circuit are passing through this successful payment hopper, which is actually this one right here. And that will be detected by this comparator and then sent through this repeater and into this monostable circuit, which sends out a short pulse up, 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 and around and all the way over here, and then into this repeater, which has a 2-tick delay on it. What that does is it will power this entire row of pistons, and there's another AND gate here where that entire row of pistons is extended, and an input from whichever minecart is missing, whichever payment minecart is missing, that input will have been sent all the way up to this circuit, and then that will be used as the second input to the AND gate. So there will be a pulse, and that will send the output to one of these torches on the backside and unpower that torch. So the reason for the 2 ticks is so that when these sticky pistons extend, they don't spit out their blocks, they hold on to them and retract. I also put 2 ticks on each of these repeaters on the output of the AND gate, because these torches will be powering some pistons, and I didn't want them to be spitting out their blocks either. This row of hoppers and chests is a convenience type thing. So what it is this is what keeps track of how many bundles have been sold. So when payment is accepted and the pulse comes through and the AND gate gets selected, then unpowering these torches will also unlock these hoppers and allow one item to pass from the hopper into the chest. So when the seller restocks, they put how many they stocked in there, and then when it has been when a bundle has been sold, then the items will pass into the chest. This is where the sold count comes from, so they can know how many bundles they have sold. This magenta circuit is all about preventing the user from summoning another bundle when the system is still processing. So one of the inputs here is this is actually from when items are passing through the payment accepted filter. So when payment is still being processed, essentially, this line will light up, and this will go into that green circuit that prevented payment minecarts from being released. So that'll prevent additional payment minecarts from being sent. And then the second kind of inputs to this magenta circuit are, this one is when the payment accepted pulse happens. So when that occurs, it triggers this T flip-flop here and puts the item of the T flip-flop into this dropper. That will trigger this, that'll give an output on this comparator and then again power this line. So when a bundle is summoned, that's when that will trigger. This one here is actually a part of a future circuit. When the minecart with a chest in it is returned to the system, it lands on a detector rail, which will trigger this one, which toggles that T flip-flop back into the off state, which then unpowers this line and will let the user order another bundle. This pink circuit here is hardly really a circuit at all, but it's very important to the user. These lights indicate when the system is processing. Actually, this is when the system is not processing, and this bottom one is when the system is processing. So this line here also ties into that green line that prevents payment minecarts from being released. And when that line is powered, which means that the system is processing in some way, either from the green circuit preventing it or from this magenta circuit from preventing it, then that power this piston and light up the processing light, and then when the system is free again and can again be used to summon another bundle, then the redstone moves back and powers the system ready light. This is the last circuit, and it deals with bundle handling. So the first part here is where the sellers stock the bundles. So you just put the bundles in like this, and then once they're all in, and this can be extended vertically for as many bundles as you want to sell. Once they're all in, you go to this stocking button and press that, and that will load the first minecart down into the staging area. So what happens here is when a pulse from the purple circuit, when the payment is accepted, comes in, it will unpower this this torch here, which will unpower this piston, retracting it, and then that will quickly retract and replace this block here. That will allow a minecart from the bundle magazine to fall down in the staging area. At that same time, this redstone block will have been removed, which will power this torch and open up this gate, sending the minecart that's already in the staging area down and into the rest of the system. So that rest of the system is actually these tracks here. So they will jump from here to there, and then that will route all of the minecarts to the user here. Now there are a bunch of levers here to get all of these tracks to line up in the same direction so that they all get down onto this rail here. It was pretty finicky, but eventually I got them all to point the right direction so that any of the stations here will all lead down onto this one track that goes to the user. Now the other thing that you might notice here is that there's a lot of slime and honey blocks. I did that because I needed parallel redstone signals over long distances that didn't interact with each other. So I used sticky slime blocks and honey blocks to move around redstone blocks and pistons to transfer that signal. Now at the end here of the longer ones, the two that are longer, I had to add monostable circuits here so that when those redstone blocks move into place, there's only a short pulse here that will trigger the pistons trigger the pistons and the gates to move the minecarts around. I had to do that because if the piston was removed for too long, 2 bundles would fall into the staging area instead of just 1. Another quick note about the slime blocks and the honey blocks is they are the reason for all of the obsidian in the build. The next part of this circuit is actually keeping track of which bundles are in stock. So if a minecart is in the staging area and has items in it, then it's sitting on a detector rail that will be picked up by this comparator and will power this piston here. This piston is actually the same sticky piston that was used in the orange circuit earlier to represent when a bundle was stocked and to remove it from the AND gate selection when it was out of stock. So when a minecart is present, then the piston will be extended, which means that it will be able to participate in that orange AND gate. I also had some honey block and slime block extensions here from those other comparators in those other sections. And those at the end, I put cauldrons with 1 bucket of water in them each, so that when they are stocked, they will be pushed up next to these comparators and then update these stocking pistons for those rows as well. The last part of this circuit is where the user removes items from the bundle. So when there's a bundle here and it has items in it, then this comparator will be turned on, and that feeds into a falling edge monostable circuit here, which feeds around into this piston here, so that when items are removed, then that piston will be retracted and replaced very quickly with the detector rail on top of it, so that the minecart will fall out of place. Now when that happens, it will fall onto this detector rail, which was used in that magenta circuit for locking the user from calling another minecart, and it will roll into a cactus, be broken, and collect in those hoppers, and then sent down into these chests for the sellers to use for restocking. Well, that is how my Bundle Bonanza works. I had a bunch of fun building this, and I learned a lot about redstone on the way. I hope you found this interesting. There will be a world download in the description if you are interested in experimenting with this project or building it for yourself. So thank you for watching, and goodbye everybody.